It's time for us to start off with Invest Karnataka 2025, the global investors meet where we are reimagining growth. We've set the ball rolling in such a way here in Karnataka that we probably reached a kind of epitome, and now we are trying to reimagine how we could take it to the next level. We've got the stalwarts from various parts of the world joined us. Ladies and gentlemen, starting off with the first session is AI, cybersecurity, and government, building digital resilience in uncertain world. This is programmed by Economist Impact. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a moderator who's going to join us on stage for this session. A moderator is an editor at large at The Economist, which he joined in 1995. Since then, he's worked as Southeast Asia Bureau Chief based in Bangkok, South Asia Bureau Chief in Delhi, and for 6 years as Chief Asia Correspondent and author of the Banyan column on Asia based in Singapore. He has edited the Finance, Asia and International sections and worked as a digital editor. He has written special reports on a wide range of subjects including dementia, financial inclusion, water, Hong Kong, India and China, Indian businesses, Indonesia and Pakistan. He had previously spent 9 years with BBC as analyst on East Asian affairs based in London. And as a correspondent in Beijing and Hong Kong, he wrote extensively for Guardian and many other outlets. In an earlier career, he's worked in London and Singapore as an investment banker. The speaker joining us on stage, who will be introduced by our moderator, was educated at Trinity College, Cambridge, Beijing Languages Institute, Nanjing University, and the Fletcher School in Boston. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our moderator from The Economist, Mr. Simon Long. Let's give a big round of applause to Mr. Simon Long. And let the round of applause be really long. Come on, goes with the name. Thank you so much for joining us, Simon. Pleasure to have you here. And the stage is all yours.
Thank you so much, Asif, and what a fulsome introduction. I feel rather embarrassed, but good morning from me, everybody, and welcome to Future-Proof Innovate for Impact 2025, sponsored by the Government of Karnataka. Can I just say, I'm hearing an echo quite badly. Is this sounding okay to you? Yeah. Oh, okay, fine. Can I just say on a personal note, Asif mentioned that I used to be, in my long past, at one point, bureau chief in Delhi 2 decades ago. And I used to come here a lot, probably more than my editors wanted, to write about the IT and BPO industries. And I used to come here because I used to like Bangalore so much. And it's wonderful to be back here. And particularly wonderful to be at a different airport, the wonderful new one. So it's a great opportunity for me. Welcome to this first session on a topic that could not be more important or more timely. As Asif said, it's about a topic that comes at the intersection of technology, sustainability, and governance. And look at particularly the role of AI and cybersecurity. We're gathering here today after 2 days of summits in Paris, where world leaders, including Prime Minister Modi and various tech moguls, got together to talk about the future of AI. Artificial intelligence is already transforming how governments operate, sucking in huge amounts of investment and redefining governance. But as it becomes more integrated into public services, so do concerns about cyber threats, data security, and digital resilience. So how can governments harness AI's potential while still safeguarding public trust and national security? This keynote session on AI, cybersecurity, and government, building digital resilience in an uncertain world, will explore these challenges and opportunities at the intersection of AI and public sector work. We'll hear from a leader who's been at the forefront of government digital transformation and cybersecurity strategy. And I'm afraid I'm not equipped, as Asif was, to give such a comprehensive biography of Anne Dunkin. But let me say she has spent a career in the private sector, in technology companies, and in government, culminating as until an event 3 years ago, an event that 3 weeks ago, that got some coverage around the world when she left the Department of Environment, where she was Chief Information Officer. Anne, please join me. Thank you very much. Please. So, quite dazzling, isn't it?
It is. It's very bright.
And I mentioned that summit in Paris. And it just seemed to me that AI is very much front of mind for a lot of people at the moment. And it occurred to me that there's been a shift in attitudes as these AI summits have progressed. I remember 2 years ago, I think it was, Rishi Sunak hosted one in Britain where the focus was all about safety, the dangers of AI and how we could protect against them. And this time, those are still concerns, but it seems to me that the focus is much more on opportunities. I mean, do you share that perception of the shift? And if so, what explains it?
It's amazing, and you're right. There's a little echo up here, so it'll be interesting for us to hear each other,
Yeah.
even though everyone can hear us great. So yes, there's a shift in public policy. The world has not suddenly shifted on its axis in 2 days or 3 weeks. Certainly, some of the world leadership has shifted, and that has changed some perceptions. So I think it's still very true that AI has both risk and opportunity. And that did not change just because we have a new administration in the United States or someone else's new administration. So we very much need to be concerned about things like deepfakes and the risks associated with being unsure of what the truth is. And I think we need to double down on tools and technologies that are going to help us continue to know or go back to being able to know what truth is. So we've got to keep that balance, right? There is a real value, a real opportunity to AI. There are some ways in which it's a little overhyped, I think, at the moment, which we could certainly talk about some more. But there definitely are risks, and those risks didn't just disappear just because the dialogue's changed.
But looking at your experience in government, and the DOE has, you were telling me, enormous computing power. I mean, how is AI affecting your work, as it were, day to day?
Yeah, so I think AI has a profound effect in everybody's work. In the DOE, so DOE does a number of things, and I won't go into the great detail, but I'll say DOE does 4 major things: nuclear security and nuclear nonproliferation, energy policy, runs the energy grid in 36 states, and then does research. And those 17 national labs where DOE does research are the first place where AI impacts DOE and the government. So it impacts our research agenda. DOE has the 3 fastest supercomputers in the world. And so there's a lot of AI research done on those computers, as well as AI computation done. So it's AI for the sake of developing AI, as well as AI to enable other research missions. So when you look at DOE, there's that research side, which I'll dig into in a second. And then there's how does AI impact government more broadly in terms of doing our day-to-day work. And just like any other industry, the governments of the world will change the way they work as they implement AI tools. For example, very simple things like developing an AI chatbot that is very focused on helping people understand how to do contracting with the government, or a tool we developed to help people understand how to permit and get more energy on the grid more quickly to get through the complexities of permitting and to help them not only understand it, but to complete that process. So from the government side of efficiency and effectiveness, that stuff is going to be, AI is going to be applied there. But it's also deeply applicable to the research agenda in DOE's national labs and advancing our research in many areas.
And I mean, in what ways can it help research? I mean, what sorts of research was it doing?
So DOE 17 national labs are considered the engine of innovation for the US or the world. They do research in everything from fundamental physics to applied research, everything from national security to open science. And so the way that AI, and so there's no longer such a thing as bench science that's isolated from computation. All research is computational, and research is done there's computation impacts research in a couple ways. First of all, it helps them design research. So you could design a research project, do analysis ahead of time, plan your research project, and then do that actual bench science, and then use technology, use computation to study your results. So when we look at that research, AI helps us with both the planning and the analysis. So examples are fusion, right? DOE is doing research in nuclear fusion. There's actually 2 solutions that DOE researches, because that tends to be how they do research, is to look at multiple ways of solving a problem. And the reason why one of the fastest supercomputers in the world is at Lawrence Livermore Lab is because the NIF, which does fundamental research in fusion, is there. The NIF is where we actually achieved ignition, so we created more energy from fusion than was used by fusion in a reaction. And so that's the first step in actually having usable fusion. But those experiments were designed through using high-performance computing, AI, and that helped them design the experiments. And then the analysis of the experiments was enabled by high-performance computing and AI. And that's why they've commissioned an even faster supercomputer. So that's one example, but those are all over the complex.
To turn to another of the big risks, of course, is the amount of computing power and hence of electricity and ultimately of carbon emissions that AI involves. I mean, I was reading that AI, I think it used to be said that Bitcoin uses as much electricity as Poland. AI could use as much as Japan. I mean, it's a huge amount. And that's in Paris. President Macron was advertising France's AI capacity because it gets so much of its electricity from nuclear fuel that it can do it without cooking the planet. I mean, how big an issue is that?
So I think there's a couple answers to that question. Right now, AI is a huge energy consumer and will continue to be a huge energy consumer. So there's some things we can dig into in that space. So first of all, there are ways on the demand side, essentially, right, in terms of AI using less energy. So several ways. Number one, we've heard about the new Chinese AI model, DeepSeek. We can't validate whether DeepSeek is quite as efficient as it says it is, although they did release source code, so we can look at that. There are some US companies, CrowdGen AI on the computation side, some other companies on the silicon side who are going to optimize AI's power consumption. Also, building models where we can incrementally train them instead of having to retrain from the beginning. So on that side, there are some ways where we can reduce the computational load, the power load, the water needs of AI on that side. On the other side, we can obviously bring clean energy to the fore, right? People are trying to co-locate data centers with nuclear power plants. People are working to bring clean energy to where it's needed or move data centers to where clean energy exists. But also the huge paradox of AI is that all that AI is actually going to help us move the clean energy transition forward. It's going to help us with climate change because AI is helping us find better battery materials, better solar substrates, better planning for wind farms so that we can optimize energy, locating geothermal wells, all those things, right? Designing nuclear power plants. All those things are going to be enabled by AI, and including, and very importantly, helping us find better ways to sequester carbon. Because while sequestering carbon isn't the answer, it is certainly part of the answer, and it's part of how we are almost certainly going to overshoot the goals of 2 degrees C. And so we are going to have to get ourselves back, and the fastest way to start moving ourselves back is through carbon sequestration. So I'll give you an example of a project by Pacific Northwest National Lab, which is one of DOE's labs, and Microsoft using AI and quantum. They looked at many candidates. I think it was 36,000 candidates for battery materials. And in the course of a few weeks, they reduced that number of candidates using those technologies down to a handful, which then they were able to evaluate using the bench science. So those are the ways in which that technology is going to help us. So, AI, nothing is straightforward. AI is still
and it's an incredibly difficult calculation, isn't it?
Yes.
How you measure the potential benefits against the actual cost in carbon emissions. Is there a way of doing that calculation?
I can't make that calculation, but what I can tell you is what we know is every new technology brings good and bad. And so, we've seen the bad with AI, the power consumption, the deep fakes. We now need to find the good and harness the good in that by finding solutions that are going to make the world better, and that includes getting us to where we need to in energy and climate change. And I do think AI will be more of an accelerator than a cost in the long term.
And you mentioned quantum,
yeah,
which seems to me as a complete lay observer, one of those things which is always just around the corner, but never actually there. But is that a potential answer to the energy dilemma? Would that be a lot less energy costly?
I think quantum will accelerate our computational power and help us solve those problems more quickly. And it is always, you say, just around the corner, but I think it's actually getting close. We are starting to see some people be able to use some actual quantum computing to solve problems. We still have a long way to go in commercializing quantum, but we are making progress in that space.
And in terms of energy usage, is it much more efficient?
So energy usage with quantum is a big issue as well, right? Because you've got a super cool quantum devices. So quantum's going to have to wrestle with the same problems around energy usage, which I think is why it's so important that we have lots of clean energy alternatives to power those devices.
Could we come back to something you touched on earlier, the cybersecurity issues? The phrase is often used that we're in an arms race at the moment between AI attackers, as it were, and people on other cyber defenses, which is the side of the fence on which I guess you sat. Is arms race a good analogy?
I'm sorry?
Is arms race a good analogy for what's going on?
Yes, it's a really good analogy. Thank you, Simon. So it's very much that the bad guys are going to start using AI, and are already using AI. If you look at phishing, right, the phishes that come into your inbox are much better now, right? It used to be, oh, well, it's badly formatted, there's a typo, the grammar's bad. None of that, right? The bad grammar may be an indication it's a real person at this point. So the ability of the bad guys to do that, the ability of the bad guys to use AI to analyze your attack surface, to identify where to attack you, much higher. So we need to do the same thing as the bad guys, right, is to harness AI. AI needs to be part of the cybersecurity tools we buy. They need to be enabled with cyber tools and cyber capabilities. And we also need to use AI to help our users understand, right, this message is probably a fake, right? This is a phishing message. This is a ransomware message. You need to be aware. So we need to apply this, we need to apply those tools and go up the chain of the arms race with the bad guys.
And again, coming back to quantum, where does that fit into this arms race? Will that I guess both sides, it will improve their capabilities.
Right, I think, and I think that the thing to be aware of with quantum, right, is I'm not going to have a quantum computer in my office, and you aren't either, but there's going to be cloud services for quantum. So it's not just going to be the nation states, and remember, we have nation states that want to get into our systems. No matter what country you are, you've got nation states that are interested in both your government systems and your private sector systems. But quantum is going to help them crack systems faster, right? The big thing we have to worry about in quantum is people have been collecting data for years, possibly decades, that they're going to use quantum to decrypt. And so post-quantum encryption, quantum safe encryption is hugely important. We need to get that out there. NIST has published algorithms that can be used now. Vendors need to get that in their systems so that we have the capability we need to ensure that our systems are safe from people cracking them with quantum tools.
I should have said earlier, by the way, that Anne has very kindly agreed to take questions from the audience if there are any. So please, if you feel the urge to ask us something or to contribute something, please draw my attention to you in some way. And if you're not in the room, I suggest you join us in the room. Oh, there is a question back there already. We have a microphone coming, I believe. While we're waiting for a mic to get to get there, and I was going to ask you, coming back to the role of government, the perception is, I think, that governments in general have been very slow to adopt AI. Do you think that's fair?
I think that's relatively fair. I mean, government is generally not an early technology adopter. I've had the advantage of sitting in a department that's responsible for adopting technology, and so we were very much on the forefront. But we are seeing across the US government people picking up AI tools. Some of it's as simple as chatbots and Microsoft's Copilot and things like that. But government will get there. We have some barriers to entry to government in terms of contracting and things like that. But absolutely, it's a fair assessment, but I don't think government's going to be very far behind in getting AI on board.
Thank you. So I think you have the microphone now.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Joan Concannon from the University of York and the Institute for Safe Autonomy. We're really interested, and I'm interested in your view about whether there should be different twin-track approaches to the safety assurance of conventional AI, which, if you look at many of the governments who are adopting AI and thinking about government systems, relative to safety on frontier AI, and whether there are intergovernmental cooperations that need to happen to think about that safety assurance in a completely different way for conventional AI. It's something that we're really interested in York.
So I think, Simon, you were talking about Paris, right? And the Paris Agreement that the US and the UK did not sign on to earlier this week. So we are in an era of uncertain government cooperation at this point. Generally in the past, the US has been at the forefront of government cooperation. That may pause for a little while. But we do need governments around the world, regardless of whether the US or even the UK is playing, to get together and cooperate. I am sure, well, maybe not sure. I think it's still likely that on the national security side, that will continue. The Five Eyes will continue their cooperation, will continue the broader NATO cooperation. But I think that there's risk right now that we will not cooperate enough in helping secure ourselves against AI, because our collective defense, as we say in NATO, is critical for all of our defense. None of us can do this alone. We need to be a team together. Okay.
So I didn't catch that last bit. Could you say that again?
I said none of us can do this alone. Our collective defense, which of course is how NATO talks about defending together, is critical.
Right. Are there any more questions out there? Yes, we have one in the second row.
I have simple question that over dependency on the AI may diminish the human natural intelligence, may cause the deterioration of the natural emotions, natural intelligence. Where should be the boundaries? Where we should the demarcation line that over-dependency should be prohibited on the AI?
Okay,
What do you think?
so let me see if I understood your question. You're asking sort of how far should AI be allowed to go?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think the question is probably more right now about what AI is capable of. I mean, I think the concept of artificial general intelligence, you know, the AI we're using now, the generative AI, is not taking us to artificial general intelligence, right? There's nothing about these mathematical models that are truly intelligent, and in fact, they're probabilistic. So I think the risk is of the perception that AI is real, right? You see people interacting with AI and thinking this chatbot somehow is real, and you hear horrible stories about people getting emotionally tied to these models. So I think there's an interesting discussion about whether governments, speaking of governments cooperating, should be trying to intervene and try and put some controls on those models. I don't know how you would, but certainly we need some education for people when they're interacting with models, that these are not human. They are not actually displaying emotions. This is not your best friend, your life partner. This is a model. Because it has no thoughts or emotions of its own, and any perception is just false.
But some fears are much more apocalyptic than that, aren't they? And which you hear less of nowadays, the idea that AI will take over the world and destroy us because we're wasting space.
Well, I mean, you know, we talked about the singularity, right? And all these books about the singularity. There might be an AI out there that someday could get there, but what we're using now is not, there's no intelligence there. It's not going to suddenly become sentient. I mean, you see it evolving and learning from its inputs, but it's simply gathering data and operating a mathematical model. So I think we're far away from the Terminator at this point.
They give a pretty good impression of intelligence, don't they?
They do, and that's the problem, right, is that people interact with these models and they feel real.
Yeah.
They're not going to take over the world, but they can cause people to do things that are bad. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And there's a question back here.
Yes.
Please.
What kind of governance models the countries must adopt in the cryptocurrency era? Because so many countries declared it as a legal tender, some countries coming forward, and every country started launching their own central bank digital currency. Under such circumstances, what kind of governance model should be adopted by the reserve banks or the governments? Thank you.
Oh, cryptocurrency, fun. So, you know, I think for the most part, cryptocurrency has been a solution looking for a problem, and a way for the bad guys to do business off the grid. There are a few occasions, I think, where cryptocurrency has added value, right? And countries that don't have stable currencies have been able to get some value out of cryptocurrency. So, you know, if I were a central banker, I would not be very interested in cryptocurrency. I think that would be more of an enforcement issue. But we're getting a little out of my core area. I don't know if you have any thoughts, Simon.
I'm with you, Anne. I'm deeply skeptical.
Yep, me too.
Countries used to control the monetary policy. Now the cryptocurrency has changed that dictum. Then how to cope with that? That's what I'm expecting as answer.
I don't think we're at the point where monetary policy is going to be dictated by cryptocurrency in most of the world. I just think that, you know, the Federal Reserve of the U.S., which is still the nation's reserve bank, is not going to suddenly engage in cryptocurrency trading or use that as part of its monetary policy. But we shall see, because, you know, there's a lot of influence from someone in the U.S. government right now who thinks Dogecoin is really cool. So we'll see.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the development of central bank digital currencies is quite exciting in lots of ways, but it will have to become part of overall monetary policy. You're right, and it will require an entirely new sort of monetary policy, where just setting the basic interest rate is going to be far from enough. And I don't think anybody is quite clear how that is going to be work or how it's going to be regulated. And of course, at the moment, we have a new administration in the United States that is all for deregulating the whole thing, basically. So I agree, it's potentially quite alarming. Is there any other question out there? Yes.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, sir. Ma'am, you just mentioned that AI is training of the model is basically used by data collection across different platforms. So my question in terms of cybersecurity is, every country has a different privacy policy for all its citizens. And certain privacy policies of different nations restrict the amount of data that can be collected, including personal information of all its citizens. So when this is the situation, when we are talking about how the future world can be empowered with AI and how security in the cyberspace can be achieved through AI, is it not wise to think that, yes, the different privacy policies across nations and continents will prove as the major roadblock for incorporating AI in cybersecurity?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I actually had a conversation about this topic at Davos a couple weeks ago. So privacy policies certainly have the ability to sort of wall off data in various countries. And you know, I'm of the opinion, because of my background in security, that's a good thing. Now, there are people who really want all that data sharing running around the world. I think that what we need to be doing is giving consumers control of their data. I think the EU policies have helped in that direction. The state of California, their policies have helped in that direction. But I think we also need to educate people. So the argument I had with someone was, I don't think people know what they're giving away. So I think part of privacy is helping people understand what data exists about them, and then letting them decide, do I want that shared globally? Do I want that shared locally? Do I want to delete that data? Because I think you know, the challenge is that once that data is out, it's out for good. And having been, have my data, all of my personal data from my security clearance was at OPM in 2015 when they were breached, or 2014. So, you know, we kind of know where that went, and those folks have my data, and then my healthcare data got breached, and we think that went the same place, and so all my data is out there, but that was not my choice. And so we really need to help people have choices, and also help that get secured. And the fewer places it is, the more secure it is.
To end, so can we say that if we want AI to protect our data, that also means that we are giving it a pass to have access to all our data?
If we want AI to protect our data, what? I'm sorry?
My question was, if we are going to incorporate AI to protect in the cyberspace all our personal information, does it also mean in one space that we are allowing it to access all our data?
No, I don't think so. I think, if I'm understanding your question, the AI doesn't need access to your data to protect it, right? The AI is part of that security tool, which protects that silo where the data exists. That doesn't mean it has to have access to your data. So, yep. Thanks.
Thank you very much, and I'm afraid with that we're completely out of time. I'm already late for the next session in Hall B on sustainable manufacturing, where I hope as many of you can will join me. But before then, thank you, Anne, for your insights. Have been fascinating, really interesting, articulate explanation. And I personally feel rather reassured about the future. I think basically you're a sort of optimist. Yeah?
Well, I try and temper the negativity with some optimism. I agree. Simon, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Please give Anne a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together. Give a big round of applause to Anne. Thank you so much for gracing this occasion. And Simon,
Thanks,
Anne, I'd like to hold you back before we step before you step down, and this is your first visit in India, right?
Yes, it is.
Like I told you initially, the guest here in India, we consider them equivalent to God and all. You might have seen people saying namaste and all, but we're going to leave you a mark with this great session which you just completed. All of us saying namaste at once, so that it resounds in your mind forever and you remember India. Together at the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Namaste.
With the action, आदाब भी कहना है तो कह लो नमस्ते जुड़ के at the count of 3. A loud namaste. And should never forget that in lifetime. And Simon, you've been in India for really long. In spite of that, you might have not heard this kind of namaste at once.
Not at once, no.
Together, at once. Let's leave an impact. 1, 2, 3, and go. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much, Simon. Request you to kindly take your seats. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is Simon and Anne with a wonderful session.